I hope everybody's having, I think everybody here has started, if you're in school, has started school. And so for those of you who've started school, I hope college or school or whatever, I hope that that is going as smoothly as it can. And for everyone else, I hope this, fall is the beginning of something new. For some of us, the new is extremely obvious, like Sarah. But there's also, this fall does bring newness. And so it's a really challenging time. So, my prayer for you is that this brings some good things beyond just the normal, what we're all going through together. So our library is alive and well and open. Tom is going to give us the director's report. I don't know if Daniel's coming. He is right there. He's here. Let me promote him to panelist. And he should be visible in a second. So there you are. Hello, sir. So Francis was kind enough to send us a report, but we are now going to hear from Francis for the WLS report. There is stuff going on. So take it away, sir. Francis?
You're muted.
Muted.
Hello.
There you are.
Oh, it's nice to be talking to yourself. Wonderful. Anyway, I was saying that I'm glad you referred to the executive director's summer update, which I sent out on the 3rd of September. It really gives a very comprehensive overview of the WLS activities during this period. And I just cannot improve on it. And I really hope that you have had time to look at it. This is the kind of report that will be given to us later this month at the board. And so you have an advanced copy of that.
Well, thank you.
We have not had any, well, through July and August, we have not, the board has not met. So our next meeting is going to be, we always meet on the last Tuesday of the month. So I think it's September 29th. In the meantime, I, as a representative of the board to the PLDA, have been attending their regular meetings every Thursday morning, including one this morning, their regular chat meeting where they just informally among friends share information and experiences and advice about the issues relating to the opening and the virus and the problems of staffing, etc. The general concern seems to be that nearly every library is going to face a certain cut in the budget. I think all are fearing that cut of maybe between 5 and 10% in some cases. Some libraries have already been warned by the city or by the board. So that is something that makes directors rather uncomfortable, but anyway, there it is. But the libraries are doing very well, varying degrees of success. Of course, our library is doing excellently, a lot of innovation, etc. And this is quite a model. Others perhaps are more conservative and they're taking it a bit slowly. The board is very cautious, etc. But in general, all the libraries are now operational, delivering books, e-books, tapes, videos, etc. And as you can see from the executive director's report, the numbers of activities in terms of audiobooks and e-books and magazines and so on has gone up considerably. So that's very good. Yeah. Of course, our library is doing an excellent job, as Tom will tell us later. So that is one. The second point is within the PLDA, besides the issues of reopening and all the attending problems, the directors have been busy with the audit reports. You know, we've had just this audit report on the IT operations and the WLS network and the DVI, etc. A working group of this, you already know this, but it's good to go over it. A working group has been established in the board of 8 people, 4 from the WLS board and then 4 directors. They've been meeting, and the idea was to discuss this audit report in a closed session, make some recommendations, and then bring it over to a larger forum where the WLS board would be involved, as well as the directors. But the directors felt that since they are the main consumers, they're the people who are really affected by what the auditors are talking about, it is good that they also have a first-hand direct access to the report. So they formed up their own working group as well. What is not quite clear in my mind, and I've been talking to some of my director colleagues this morning, is that it looks like there are 2 parallel working groups. There is the board, our own board working group, looking at the report, and also the directors working group, which is fine. But this should not be a permanent parallel line. There should be a meeting point somewhere where the 2 bodies meet together and begin to compare notes. I do not get the impression that that is the case, but I suppose that is the intention, that the 2 working groups will merge at some point and discuss their recommendations together. The audit report, I have the audit report, it reads like Greek to me, but I'm not a technical person, although I'm taking some lessons in IT, but I'm not a technical person. I'm a policy person. So I got the drift of the report. It is quite critical about the relations between WLS and the library. It's critical about lack of trust. It's critical about all equipments being used by some libraries, as opposed to the more modern equipment being used by WLS, et cetera, issues like this. And in the working group, I understand that the executive director came out with a list of recommendations that are to be, or a list of issues that once agreed on would form the basis for a new LSA. That is what LSA is. What is what does it stand for? Library service library agreement, as LSA, service library agreement about IT and etc. You'll see that in the report of the executive director. That's explained in there. But the first draft of the LSA, and there are going to be 4 of them. First draft of LSA came out, and the directors had had a look at it, and they didn't like it. They feel that it does not address the perennial issues that has been nagging the libraries, and the weaknesses that they see in the WLS. And so a number of libraries, but 13 of them, including our own, have addressed their concerns directly to the board. They would like this matter to be discussed more thoroughly and trashed out, and things should not be rushed quickly to a solution. Maybe Tom will talk a little bit about that. But the way it looks now, as I read through the report and talking to my colleagues, that the libraries fall within 3 groups. There are those who like to maintain the situation as it is now, because they feel that they're a small library and the facilities that are provided to them by WLS are good enough. It it helps their budget, and they're happy with it. There are a few of those. That's one group. And there is another group which feels that, no, we need a thoroughgoing discussion and review and reorganization of the entire state of affairs. And this is where the 13 original states are, if you remember the history. Yeah, the 13 libraries are. And then there's another group that feels that maybe there should be a little hybrid. I understand that's the famous word these days, a hybrid, a little combination of the present arrangement and also certain independence where the libraries are free to outsource their needs. They can go wherever they feel they can get better services or better product for their money. And also deal with WLS whenever they feel it is necessary. They should have that freedom, so they should not be forced to be dealing with WLS all the time. So that seems to be the three broad configurations or groups within the library. I hope that things will become clearer when issues are brought to the board by the end of this month. And then I should be able to talk perhaps more clearly on what's happening and how the board and the directors intend to resolve this issue. So that's where we are. The main headache now is what to do with the audit reports and the recommendations, and how to make the best of it. And then of course the whole issue of reopening, etc. So that's where we are.
Does anyone have any questions? I do. So you said all of the libraries are open now. Are any of them open kind of just regularly, or is everybody open with different shifts?
I think every library has its own arrangement. The only thing that I heard in common is that I think all of them are closed on Sundays, if I picked that up right this morning. But others are open different times, different hours. Some have toilets available to the public, others don't, that kind of things. Some have laid off their staff and others have not. So every library is sort of dealing with its own situation sui generis in their own way. There's really no uniformity. I hope I'm right in that, Tom.
You are, Fran. There is no uniformity. 38 libraries in the Westchester library system and seemingly 38 different approaches to managing services and serving the public. And Deirdre, there are a few libraries that are closed. Closest to us, at least as of a week ago, Greenberg was still closed. But most of the libraries are open, mostly at limited hours. Curbside service seems to be fairly common and popular, and usage for our library and most of the other libraries tend to be fairly light because people are still anxious about sort of re-engaging in a building, a public building with people. Almost all libraries are putting caps on the number of people that can enter. I'd say most libraries, but not all, have no computer access or very, very limited access, have a few, if little seating. There are libraries with different approaches, but there are many things that we all seem to share in common. And I would just like a quick comment about Francis's thoughtful words about the first SLA, the service agreement that WLS sent out. And this service agreement relates to IT, which you folks know has been a real hot button for us and so many other libraries. And frankly, not to get into too much detail, we really were shocked and surprised that it really seemed to be very rigid and very much tied to the old way things were done. We were looking for things like libraries would not be forced to purchase WLS equipment and services to access an ILS server, a server that's actually hosted remotely in the cloud. We want to be able to access the ILS directly in our computers in a secure manner. It's certainly less expensive for us to purchase and maintain computers than go through WLS. One of the other issues is we are supposed to access libraries, access services sort of through service levels that in the SLA are not being identified. So we really don't know what the sort of standards and protocols are. That's very disconcerting. We have no sense of agreed upon predefined standards. So if there's no standards, how can we say things aren't working? It's a problem. And, just things like we're concerned about ransomware attacks that many libraries in the network fell under those blows. We were lucky we did not, but libraries were down for long periods of times and had to spend a lot of money to get it going again. And frankly, WLS during the week of August 24th, without any notice, brought us down for what was supposed to be 2 hours to work on aspect of the system. And what turned out to be, it was down for 4 days, which caused extraordinary headaches throughout the WLS system. Our staff didn't have access to circulation mode. We didn't have access to our online catalogs, to our processing of new material. It's that sort of thing that we feel that we need an SLA that is really relates to our issues and gives us a certain amount of independence without hamstringing WLS. So that's it. And we signed on along with a dozen libraries or so, including Mount Vernon, including Mount Pleasant, including Ossining, White Plains, so Greenberg. Some smaller libraries and some 3 of the 4 largest libraries too.
Right. Okay, I thought you were going to talk about that under your director's report.
Oh,
but,
I figured with Francis that I just would tie to that, and I don't need to mention in that report.
Okay. We will move to the president's report. What is the resolution on there, Tom, on the agenda? What is that? I don't have it.
Would be tied to the personnel committee. There's 2.
Okay, so that's under personnel. That's not under this.
Right. No, it must be. I'm sorry. It must be from a previous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The only thing I have to report is I'm still, as Beth knows, I called her a couple of months ago and said, do you know anything going on with the projects that are going up? And it's amazing to be down there because everything is moving along as is. And I still remain very concerned that we are going to be in the middle of a whole bunch of tall buildings. And when by the time we talk at the planning committee, I'm glad we did because it definitely raised the level. It was a done deal. So the project that's coming across from, that's going to take out Alvin's, it's across from the garden. I think that's probably, from my understanding, that one is coming. And if there's any way we can get in front of these, that would be good. So as they're designing and planning, they think about us, because I really feel like we are going to be this small, tiny building in the middle of, which would be fine. I don't think though we're going to get any, we're not going to have value add from being in the middle of all these places. We should. So I'm just bringing that up as one of my huge concerns. And however we think about moving forward on that, if there's different places we could put pressure, I'd love to hear some thoughts and suggestions. If you have them now, fine. If you kind of have them later, but whatever we can do to be a part of any conversations that impact our surroundings would be really helpful.
So that's one thing. Does anybody have any thoughts about that, or before I move on to my next issue? So,
Just getting a meeting with the New Rochelle Planning Board, but I think you guys did that already, or no?
yeah. But I mean, by
There
the
should be
time we get
more.
to the planning board, it's a done deal.
Well, all right, so maybe I'm talking about the wrong area. I'm looking it up right now. Just give me 1 second, I'll tell you.
Go ahead, Beth. Can Beth go while you look
Yeah,
it
go
up?
ahead, go.
No, I was just going to say that I feel like before you know it, all of a sudden there's more. If you look on that 10-10-10,
Yeah.
New Rochelle,
Yeah.
it's I'm getting confused because I'm like, where'd that come from? Where'd that come from? So if I feel like I've lost track of how it works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the meetings and, is it going before city council? Who's just keeps agreeing for all these buildings? So, but I also have heard, and I believe this, that some of the properties that have been bought, I'm not going to be specific on which ones, there's some pushback maybe. They're concerned with financing because I don't, again, there's a bunch of us that talk every week and we go through how we're doing with the units. And, I keep kidding around with Luis and I say, stop allowing studios because the studios aren't moving. Yes, they will, but they're not. And I think, some of these banks are going to pull back. And I think that's going to be a problem with some of these purchased lots or corners. And they may not actually come to fruition if things aren't moving fast enough. The new buildings that are up, they're not 100%. They're up, I open a year now, and they're not 100%. They're not 90%. They're not 80%. So it's what's going to happen when there's 30 of them?
Mm-hmm.
That's my question. And
Right.
like you said, we're this little dot, with everyone up around us and above us. And I feel like no one's, we went to that one meeting, but no one else is even asked our input,
Yeah.
So Luis is who we should be meeting with at least every other week to kind of get a pulse, because he's out in the country talking about development in New Rochelle. So the RFPs and all those deals are going through his office. So when you say, and I understand, Deirdre, maybe you can give me an understanding. And you say if we talk to that department, it's too late. They're the ones that are the innovators to bring deals to the city.
So by the time it gets to planning, so there's two different things. We can talk to Louise. We could certainly make that a part of what we do every week. We could talk to Louise. Different people on this call have different relationships with planning for sure. So that's easy. But by the time it gets to planning, it's pretty well kind of established.
But he's the sales guy. He's the internal sales guy. Like, he's bringing those deals to the table.
So by the time that we end up meeting with those deals, most of them have already talked to the architect. Most of them have already, they come with architectural plans. So we can meet with Louise, but it's kind of chicken and egg. Because I by the time they get into the planning department, they are well on their way.
All right. Just from my experience, usually you go through, the planning department would be the equivalent of HPD in New York. HPD comes up with a project, we do an RFP, we answer the RFP, they ask us for designs, we go through the design phase, we get approved for the RFP, and then once we get approved for the RFP, we go into construction or development, whichever happens next. And so, is that different here?
So Beth, what's the process with Louise here? My sense is, go ahead, sorry. It looked like you.
No. So I'm not like, I don't know the process. I just know we would go to the meetings, the city council meetings, things like that, even the planning board meetings. I feel, again, there's no question and answer. It's complaints, and then they just approve. So do you know of anything that hasn't been approved?
Right, so that's city council and that's planning meetings. And my suggestion isn't going to a city council planning meeting. So if that's,
It's going to meet with Luis.
you got to meet with Luis directly. Hey, what's in the queue? Because he has a queue.
So go ahead, we could definitely start meeting with him regularly. And we can see how fruitful that is. Go ahead, Dan. I can't hear you.
You hear me? I think I'm lagging.
Go ahead.
Am I lagging?
Now you're not.
Can you guys hear me? Oh, I'm lagging. Hold on. I'm going to go in through my phone because I think something's wrong with my home network.
I mean, we can hear you. We just heard, I think something's wrong with my home network.
Yeah, so I was going to say that I sat on planning board. So pretty much when we arrive to the planning board, it's a done deal. And it's pretty much, us approving the project, or if we don't like a specific siding that is there, or too much sliding in the sky, or blah, blah, blah. So I think my recommendation would be for just go directly to the development department and really having a conversation or meeting on a monthly basis.
So I think it's actually more of what Corey said. It's not one conversation. It's kind of having to stay in their face a lot. So it's kind of, on some regular basis, having a standing meeting, and maybe actually saying, we'd like to have a standing meeting with you every other, week, or every other week, to talk about what's in the queue. I'm happy to do that, and try to set that up. If everybody thinks that, what do you guys think about that? Just moving forward, and perhaps we should have done this in the past, kind of, having a standing meeting to check in with him every other week, because obviously stuff is going up around us. What are some thoughts on that?
Well, by us checking in with him, not saying it in a disrespectful way, by checking in with him, what are we accomplishing? Are we just to know what's been approved, or to try and meet with the developers or something?
So what Luis's role is the gatekeeper of development. Okay. And so in that role, he talks to a lot of developers. And so some of those developers may be cold, some of those developers may be hot, some of those developers may be medium. But he's the one that says, all right, so I see the land over here. This is the whole part of city planning. I see this land over here, this land over here. This developer reached out to me. This developer reached out to me. I'm not ready to bring this to the planning board. I'm not ready to bring this to anyone. But I have a queue of projects that I'd like to see get done. I have a queue of developers I'd like to work with. And I'm kind of working through the process to figure out who I'm going to work with, who I'm not going to work with, what I'd like to see develop, what I'd not like to see develop. Those are the real conversations, because when you start having those conversations, you get into the creativity before it gets to the planning board. And so the goal would be you have those conversations in their infancy. Not by the time you get to the planning board, you're 100% correct, Deirdre. It's too late. It's over. If you end the queue before he gets to even launching an RFP or thinking of an RFP or an RFI, then you're into places where you're getting to the creative process, which is where we want to be. We want to be at the head in the creative process. So the goal would be to be at the head of the creative process and not at the end. That would be the real conversation I would have with any, policy development of planning official, because I want to be there early. And I'm telling you this as a developer. I want to talk to the planning way before we get to RFPs because I want to know what you're thinking.
So then I think that's good. So how do you then, so we can do that. I think at the same time, the city has made it clear to us that we are not their priority at all, and that our needs, they don't see as their needs. So I think we should definitely go through Louise, who's made it clear your needs are my needs. But I think we also need to find out another avenue in addition to with that, because I just think it's important for us to use as many places to get our message out about the library, because I'm not sure that meeting with Louise, it could be very fruitful, but I'm not sure. But it's definitely a place to start.
I think we can leverage our relationships with like a Yadira.
And what would that do? Be more specific.
Yeah,
what would
just
that
make
do?
it something of a priority. So this is politics. So if Louise doesn't see this as a priority, someone else has to show them it's a priority.
Yeah. Okay. So I can set up a meeting with some of us to meet with Louise.
Okay.
Okay. But I still think we need to do more. I still think I'm still concerned about all the buildings around us and us being behind the 8 ball. Nope. Okay. So that was my first thing. Does anybody have anything else they want to? Whitney, do you want to add anything? You work with developers a lot. You know, Louise, like, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think we need to, I don't know what else we should be doing to make ourselves, you know, more of a partner. I don't think we have enough necessarily to offer in return other than headaches for people who are making these decisions. But it's our duty as elected officials and as stewards of the library to protect the library and to ensure that what's happening around us can benefit us somehow. If people are benefiting from coming and, you know, staking a claim here, we need to make sure that they know the library and that they have our best interests. We just need to advocate. So I'm in line with what everyone's saying.
Okay. Well,
one thing, I think if we can do maybe like a 1-page sort of to make the public more aware of what's going on, like what Beth had said, that's very interesting to me. That the occupancy isn't at what some people believe it to be at. So just to have it very easily readable.
Sure.
You know, all of these buildings, this amount of occupancy, do we need more of this downtown? Some sort of campaign like that, I think, would work well with the public.
Okay.
My one suggestion would be that if we do that, we just need to make sure it's information that we can back up, that we're not, you know, operating on anecdotes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What I was saying, Chuck, you mean like statistics?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just think if we're gonna,
I have the statistics because I'm the leasing agent for one of those buildings, and we all
that's great.
Talk every week. So I have a whole building to myself, and then I talk with 360 with Print House, Skyline, Halsted, other buildings in Yonkers and in White Plains. So forget about those, but I know exactly the numbers. I know the lease rate, the occupancy, and it's not where everyone wishes it was. I mean, Skyline and Halsted, they're already established. So they lose some, they gain, right? They're already over 95%, like all the time. But the newer buildings, like I said, they're not at full capacity, and most of their studios are not occupied. You know, not to be so specific, but that's what's going on with the newer buildings. So.
Who just said?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah. Hi here. Just to shoot in the dark, these concerns about the buildings, etc. Are we in any way sharing these concerns with the members of the foundation at all, and to see to what extent they may help us?
Well, that one pager would go to them too. I like the one pager, and that's one way to make. No, that's one way to make sure that we are getting the message out to everybody.
Because some of them may have contacts that could be helpful to us. I don't know. I'm just thinking aloud.
Okay. So can I ask Sarah, it was your idea, Corey, and maybe Beth, if you guys could have a quick conversation and try to come up with some one pager. Beth seems to have the data. Sarah, it was your idea, and Corey, you're very engaged. If you could the three of you come up with a one pager?
Sure.
And at the same time, I will get in touch with Luis's office to kind of see if I can put something on the book for us. Love to see the one pager before we even meet with him.
Sounds good.
How's that sound, guys?
That works.
So then my next issue is our
Jeff, do you want to take the lead on it? You want to start?
Sorry, I was on mute. Did you say something?
No, do you want to take the lead because you have the numbers? Like I usually start with numbers and then you break the narrative around.
Sure.
All right, great. Sorry, go ahead, Deirdre.
Issue number 2 is the green outside and the fact that it is being utilized. Well, the fact that our library is sometimes being utilized to relieve people, for people to relieve themselves. Now, before I say too much about this, I'm going to ask Tom to just update us on how bad it is. Is it helpful that we have our bathrooms open? As you know, about a year ago, if not more, Tom and I met with Bill Zimmerman of the Parks and Rec Department to see if we could open up the bathrooms in the green. And we had agreed to pay for some of it, even though it is not our responsibility, that the county owns the park and has given the city the responsibility to manage it. So technically, we were actually doing them a solid because it's not really supposed to be us. COVID happened, and so then now public bathrooms are not being opened at the rate they were. We didn't have this summer. We didn't have we didn't have the traffic there. However, what we did have this summer is before we opened, our library was, the people are in the park and people were relieving themselves by our library. There's no bathroom at all. And so, we're trying to be good citizens. We're trying to be good library citizens, and we are good library citizens, but I'm not, I don't feel like at this point we're getting met with the same kind of generosity of community that we're putting out. So right now, we went back and forth with this discussion. Chuck made a phone call. Daniel made a phone call. Tom made a phone call, all to the city to say, are you going to open up those bathrooms? I know you had the conversation a year ago. And we finally got the answer, no, we're not opening up the bathrooms, which to me says we're not opening up the bathrooms. The park can look how it wants. Your library can look how it wants. We're done. We're not helping. So before I say more, because I'm going to go around again and say, okay, library trustees, what should we do? Before I say more, Tom, can you update us on where we are in terms of the use of the park, the use of our bathrooms, and whether it's still an issue?
Deirdre, everything that you said up until that moment was entirely accurate. I'm happy to share. First of all, as far as the park usage, we are oftentimes later in the loop to learn about these issues where patrons are relieving themselves because of a lack of restroom facilities. And it's still happening. We do get comments from time to time. And people sometimes looking out windows can actually see, an act in progress, which is very mortifying for people, their families. We do now have the restrooms open essentially 6 days of the week, albeit while we're open, 10 to 12, 2 to 4, 2 nights a week from 6 to 8. Saturdays, this Saturday, that same 10 to 12, 2 to 4. And so people initially were not coming in and using our facilities. I'm being told by our security guards that in fact, they are being more utilized, which is a good thing. And we're of course cleaning bathrooms on the half hour as well. And that's, basically sort of where we stand. It was disappointing to, as Deirdre said, there was a lot of conversation back and forth about opening the facilities. What was puzzling to us was that, in fact, there were other New Rochelle parks that had restrooms that were open. For some reason, our Ruby D Library Green bathroom was not accorded that same level of interest. We were told that it was a COVID-19 concern and that they would not open them until this pandemic was, a past problem. So that's sort of where we stand.
It is the county's park, and so, we could obviously go to the park, go to the county and say, are you going to do something about the bathrooms in your park, because the city's not. But what are your thoughts on that? Just because it impacts the library, unfortunately.
Can I ask, let me just throw out another idea. Has anybody talked to look, I do think this should be I'm disappointed that the city government's not cooperating with us. I just don't understand that. I would actually think that they would have more interest than we would in having the downtown area be a nice place to be and people not relieving themselves, given all the development, that they would, not want to have people coming to look at new apartments and then see somebody relieving themselves in the park. So I struggle. I don't get that. But that being said, has anybody talked to the business, like the bid? Because I'm wondering if the bid might have any interest in, partnering on this or helping us, gain momentum behind it, because they obviously want to make the downtown attractive for people to come and shop and dine and, what have you.
Could we?
No, that's a really good idea. And I can
That's
say,
a good idea.
Likely know that Ralph DeBart, after many years of service, has retired, and we now have a new bid executive director. Her name is Carol Littman. She comes from Yonkers, and it worked in a very similar environment to our environment. And we've partnered with her. Barbara Davis made the initial contact. I've been in contact with her frequently. She had a tour of the library. She's been working with our teen and children's librarians to talk about future programs. She wants to make a difference in the community. And Chuck, I think that's a very thoughtful idea to approach her and see if she would pick up the ball along with us and see if we could make some headway.
I like that idea. We haven't talked at all.
I don't know this new person, but I'm happy to help in any way that I can. And, I'm friends with some business owners in downtown, as I'm sure many of you are, and I'm happy to also, get them to weigh in.
Maybe we could get a letter and get as many people to sign on to it as possible, and just say, like, this is a matter of, like, city pride, and it's a city pride issue. It's a county pride issue. It's something, it's like, why do we want to showcase downtown that is being, like, literally defaced? I mean, it's
easily solvable, and it's something that everybody should be able to get behind. It's not that complicated.
Right. No, exactly. It's embarrassing.
Well, I think one of the reasons that that Bill shared with me was that due to COVID, he didn't have the manpower to do it. So that's something that we can, you know, probably assist and brainstorm, you know, and what we can come up with as far as a solution. If that's the only problem, I think we can figure it out, you know, on our end as well. You know, if the city is willing to, if they have the funding to do it and support us, and we have it, and we can figure it out.
Okay, so who's taking lead on this? Tom, are you going to call the head of the? Yes, he's muted, but
And I'm happy to strategize with you, Tom, as well. Like,
Okay.
I'm happy to talk about it and happy to help.
Okay.
I think, Tom, you're on mute.
As well, support this.
Sorry, I agreed. I'll work with you, Chuck, happily reach out to Carol, the executive director. And I think Whitney's idea was thoughtful too, bringing to bear our local businesses in the downtown area who obviously want customers, and customers need facilities. It seems like a no-brainer.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe like the Chamber of Commerce could help get businesses on board to sign a letter like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chuck's right. I think it's
Yeah,
it's
I don't
something...
know. The chamber and the bid are, I think, similar organizations in some ways, but yeah, you know, these folks that have an interest in making downtown a friendly place.
What about the brand new property owners? You know, like maybe they could, well, not only should
They
they
can
sign
pay for it.
exactly, like
Yeah,
should they
exactly,
sign
yeah.
on to it, but like they should pay for it and help find people. This is, oh baby, sorry, Sarah's baby's distracted me.
Oh.
He saw the little head.
I do think it's one of those issues that a lot of people can get around, and it is, you know, pride of our county and our city. So I think we could probably solve it if we just addressed it. So,
But what other parks actually have bathrooms that are open? Like what
are the bathrooms over at the Bud Flowers Park open? They probably are. I mean, they've been using that all summer. I don't know. I have no idea.
My understanding is
at Davenport.
A presence when they were doing programs. There were public restrooms available there,
Over at the Flowers Park?
and a few others too, from what I've been told. So
That'd be good to know too.
No public restrooms in parks or public areas unavailable. There are a number.
Gina's saying Davenport.
No, Davenport. It's perplexing why there's not as much interest in opening this restroom, despite the passive and active usage. It's considerable. We see it.
Yeah.
Or
I mean, per acre or whatever, even if that's an acre at best, it's got to be the most used park in the city when you think about the size of it relative to the usage.
Yeah.
Hey, Deidre, can you grant me access for video? I had to switch because I'm lagging on the computer.
Yeah. The power.
It's so puzzling to see the attitude of the city on this, but other cities are not doing the same. Ossining is helping the library to deal with the toilet issue. So is that any problem?
I was saying that I can support you, Tom, and I'll reach out to Catherine White and Robert Hayes. He's the president of the Chamber of Commerce on that front as well, and see what we can come up with approaching bid and the chamber.
yeah, I think it's really crucial. We're open and people are taking advantage of our facility, but we're not open the sort of hours we were previously, over 60 hours a week. We're not. So having an option for our residents or our visitors, seems fairly reasonable.
Looks to me.
Okay. That is actually all I have for the president's report. And so actually, Tom, you want to take it away?
Sure. Thank you, Deirdre. Well, it's sort of amazing to say, but we just completed our first month of being open since closing on March 17th for due to the COVID pandemic. We opened on August 3rd, and it was a positive month. I have to admit, our usage was light and slow, oftentimes, not dissimilar to other libraries, which sort of surprised us all. But people are anxious about coming in, and we don't have the same suite of services. We don't have computers yet. We don't have seating. Our programs, our summer has been in the past, you all know, a time of great energy and activity, and this year was strangely silent. So our usage was slight, except that we saw on Mondays and Thursdays, when we're open 3 sessions, we saw more activity. During that month, we could see anywhere from 25 to 40 people a day. But on those Tuesdays and Thursdays, we were seeing, Mondays and Thursdays, we were seeing 60 to 80, which was much better. I can tell you that our activity is not just specific to the building. Curbside has been extremely busy. People are taking advantage of it. They are looking at our print material and non-print material, and our staff is, taking calls and emails while they're in the building and servicing the public simultaneously when we're open. So that's all good. The school year, I guess, in a matter of speaking, has started. And what's really interesting is just 3 days in, we're seeing far greater activity. Before, I was telling you, oftentimes it could be 20 to 40. In our first 3 days, we've seen between 80 and 110. So people are coming back. They need to, maybe because summer is over, because school has started, some other reasons. But we have been busy. We've been continuing to provide great online and e-content services, our streaming services like Canopy, Hoopla, Acorn TV, and the New York Times and e-magazines and ebooks are still very popular, and that's a way for people to access us in a different way, but it's still access. Our social media continues to be strong and popular. Twitter continues to be popular. We doubled impressions for the time period in July and August. Instagram also continuing to increase. Our Facebook activity is strong. Particularly, we're finding programs via Facebook, especially with children, is far more popular than our Zoom programs. And even though we were a shadow of ourselves this summer, we did during July and August have 861 people attend our adult programs, 79 people our teen programs, almost 3,600 people participated in our children's programs. So there's activity. It's really not what we have grown to witness and participate in. Our summer reading program, which in years past, we've seen 600, 700 children participate. This year was 194. Our one-on-one programs for July and August continue to be popular, particularly our job coach and our community support specialist are meeting with people, sometimes remote, sometimes in the building. And we're still seeing activity vis-a-vis our website visits, almost 14,000 for the previous 2 months, and internet access, almost 15,000. So, we're busy, and we think we're going to be busier given the change of season and the change of schooling. So, and that's good. I talked about hours. Our hours are, as I mentioned, Maine is changing on Saturdays. We're dropping 11 to 1, and we're going to a standard schedule of 10 to 12 and 2 to 4. And that's that's going to start this Saturday. The Huguenot Children's Library, I'm happy to report, will finally reopen, and the day is coming up. It is September 14th, and we'll be open Mondays 10 to 2 with curbside 10 to 12 and browsing 12 to 2. Closed on Tuesdays, Wednesdays 1 to 5, curbside in the beginning of the afternoon, browsing in the end. Thursdays, again, will be open for a virtual story time, and then browsing, that'll be from 10 to 2. Fridays from 10 to 2, again, curbside in the morning and browsing in the afternoon. People will have to sort of essentially probably wait. We're only letting in no more than one family, 5 people in the building for 15-minute increments. We're not planning reservations at this point in time. We're hoping it's not necessary, but if this approach creates long lines, we will try to implement a reservation system too. So that's it in terms of activities. I just also want to mention about our New York State grant that we applied for, and we met with some success, some qualified success, but not the type of success we've had in the past. As you folks probably know, the construction monies had been jacked up to 18 million the last few years, which meant that we got really big awards. It was moved back down to 12 million, and unfortunately our award suffered like everyone else. We had a project to do the fire stopping and the exit signs for 309,000. We were looking for a grant of 230,000, with the rest are matching. We were notified that we received, in fact, only 61,000 instead of the 230,000. So I spoke with Elise Burke, who's the person who manages the grant program, very ably manages it for WLS. And what we'd like to do is to drop the signage aspect and just go with the fire stopping, which is an important project to do in terms of making the library safer, life safety. And so we would probably have to match it with 80,000 as well. And Elise did tell me that, that the grant monies for the Westchester Library System were just over 650,000. But the grant requests were doubled, about 1.1 million. So our award is understandable and in keeping with the entire picture of many of our peer libraries seeking money for various projects. And I think that's it. And happy to answer any questions that you might have.
You might have said this, but is there any, have you guys put any thought to if the cases in New Rochelle start to go up, and kind of how we would handle that?
We have talked about it, and as Francis has discussed, it's been a topic internally here as well as part of the county director's somewhat casual conversations. And I think if numbers start to rise, you know, we may make decisions that may relate to restricting hours. We have a total capacity in the building now of just over 50. We might decide to lower that number. We really are hoping not to close, or unless it's crucial. And of course, a last case scenario other than closing would be to returning to where we were in the middle of June and starting in July, which was curbside only. And there are a few countries that do that. That would be a step back, but it also would be maybe an appropriate step for the public health concerns of our staff and our public. So we're kind of playing it out and waiting to see what might happen. I think one of our big concerns is if a staff member is diagnosed with COVID-19, and how would that impact us if, you know, we were in contact with a certain person, we would have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So that's as big of a concern as, you know, the numbers rising.
Okay. Thanks. Does anybody have any questions for Tom about our beloved library?
Nope.
All right. So we're going to do committee reports. And Daniel, we are going to start with community relations.
Okay, community relations. So this is a report by a good friend, Barbara Davis. 2 thematic e-newsletters continue to be sent out each week and include content provided by librarians, information from various reliable sources and community partners, and information on the 3 ways to get library material. Barbara and Denise distributed summer reading promotional kits and pick-me-ups at the Lincoln Park recreation programs and the MBK Family Fun Days. The MBK Family Fun Days were well attended, so thank you to all the partners that participated and the Milestone 6 that kind of, got together to make this happen during these difficult times. Community Relations assisted with the Fast Track to First Grade initiative, spearheaded by Colleen Gardefee. She's the managing director of MBK, by providing books, bags, crafts, and supplies, library card applications, forms, and flyers, and helping assemble 790 literacy goodie bags, going to each first grader in the New Rochelle City School District. The principals at the elementary schools are working collaboratively with Colleen and the team there. And they were also asking for members of the community leaders to write special motivating notes to each first grader. So that was pretty cool. Librarians and community relations staff members also wrote personalized Dear First Grader notes, as I just stated, that were included in the bags. Barbara presented 2 virtual local history presentations. One of them was Leading Suffragists of New Rochelle and the History of Waikagill Neighborhood, with a combined attendance of 200. Links of these previous and the previous Zoom local history presentations are now available on the New Rochelle history page on the New Rochelle Public Library website. And in September and October, the library will be hosting and facilitating 2 book discussions on the theme of Votes for Women and the League of Women Voters of New Rochelle. The community relations staff members continue to attend a number of teleconference meetings to work with our partnering organizations and institutions. And in addition to that, I will also make an announcement, just in case parents or anybody watch our video, about lunches being distributed, lunches and breakfasts. Again, I know parents probably get this already, but a lot of this is being distributed at all the school sites for families that need school lunches during this remote learning, the month of September. It does not matter where your child attends school. You can go to any local school, including the high school and the middle schools, to pick up lunches. It is free and available for everyone. You do not have to qualify for free or reduced lunch. So if you pay for lunch, you can stop by any of the schools and pick up lunch. The schedule of the lunches should be on the school district website. And that's pretty much it.
Wait, can I ask you about that lunch thing? So anybody can go get lunch?
Correct.
And so you don't pay for it? Or like if you usually pay for lunch at school, do you pay for it now?
No, they were able to secure a grant based on my understanding that they will not be paying for school lunches.
So some schools offer this as a service to everybody. So is that what I'm hearing, that in this time, this is just a service for everybody?
I know they were discussing, and I'll try to get more information. I think they wanted to continue with this model during the remainder of the school year. Okay. I know that Mr. Kern talked about securing additional grants but I can get more information and share at the October meeting as to what would be the plans for 2021 in regards to food and lunches.
Yep. Okay.
But very if good. They do this, that'll be great. So
it's very good.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I mean, particularly some schools try to do breakfast because, of course, breakfast is the one that's most important, so that everybody gets it and grab and go. So I know there's schools throughout the county that do that for everybody, regardless of income. So that's just great. Yeah. It's really great to hear.
For sure.
Okay. Do you have anything else? Any questions?
No. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, Daniel is doing such a great job that I think the Rotary Club is going to approach him to talk on some of these things. That's off the record.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so the Personnel Committee is going to talk. Chuck, we didn't even talk about this. I was assuming that you were going to do it because you had done, I'm very sorry to put you on the spot. I didn't prepare to talk about this myself. So are you ready to do that?
I am fully prepared.
Oh, you're prepared.
Very good.
I am prepared. Do you want me to go ahead?
Go for it.
Perfect. So as folks will know, we had been meeting starting pre the pandemic happening with the union in relation to our contract with the union, which is now expired. You know, we did not arrive at a agreed contract prior to the expiration of the existing contract, just because, frankly, of what happened with the pandemic, and it kind of threw everything off track. We resumed discussions with the union representatives probably, I don't know, 2 months ago or so. I think about 2 months ago. I don't remember the exact date. But you know, initially when July. Thank you. So you know, initially the union had you know, come to us with expectations of you know, increases in you know, compensation, et cetera, in the contract. You know, we were kind of in the process of going back and forth with them. We hadn't arrived yet at an agreed you know, an agreed contract that we wanted to put forward to this board. We had then a significant pause in the discussions because of the pandemic. We resumed, as Tom just confirmed, in July, and the union kind of came back to us with a suggestion that instead of trying to negotiate a multi-year contract in this environment, we'd like to pursue a short-term 1-year extension of the existing contract, which I think would bring us, Tom, through June. Is it June 2021?
Exactly, Chuck, through the June 2021.
June 2021. So you know, they said we'd like to, instead of, you know, kind of going back and forth on this multi-year contract, we'd like to pursue a shorter term extension of the existing contract with a couple of changes. And these are changes that we had discussed as part of the overall negotiations. One of the changes was a change. The custodians currently have a different schedule from everybody else at the library in terms of their regular work week. They actually are currently required to work more hours as part of their regular work week than the rest of the employees. They wanted to bring their schedule in line with the rest of the employees, which we were, as a personnel committee, comfortable with. And Tom was thinking we could bring in a part-time custodian to make up those other hours, because if we didn't do that, then you know, because the regular work schedule that we would be moving to is shorter than the custodian's current work schedule, if we didn't bring in part-time help, we'd be incurring more overtime hours, and we weren't comfortable with that. So we said, we're willing to bring your schedule in line with the rest of the employees if you're willing to let us bring in part-time labor so we don't incur overtime costs. And they were okay with that. So one of the changes you know, that in this 1-year contract extension that we agreed to was bringing the custodians that the personnel committee is going to propose, is bringing the custodians schedule in line with the rest of the employees, but with the caveat that we can bring in part-time labor so we don't incur overtime costs. So that was one of the changes that we're going to, you know, in a minute put forth as the proposed contract for a vote. The second change was the union asked whether we would be agreeable to making Thanksgiving a holiday, a paid holiday, which many municipal governments and other libraries already have. And you know, Yep.
Friday after Thanksgiving.
Friday
right?
after Thanksgiving.
Sorry, what did I don't know. My apologies. The Friday after, what did I say?
Thanksgiving.
I'm sorry.
Thanksgiving.
Uh,
That
no,
makes
they're
us
gonna
sound
work-
really
They're
mean.
gonna work Thanksgiving. So that's part of it too. No, I'm just kidding.
They just get the Friday off, but not Thursday.
No, an additional holiday, the Friday after Thanksgiving, because I think they were already, are they off on Saturday, Tom? Or is it to resume
No,
regular?
they're not. It's a,
Got
we
it,
resume regular, we'll continue regular Saturday hours.
got it, got it. So basically that change there, the giving them the Friday after Thanksgiving as a holiday. And then the third was related to compensation. So, you know, we had some back and forth with the union representatives, and again, this is a one-year contract. Can you, Tom, briefly review? You know, we had, during the financial crisis, we had negotiated a contract that I don't want to go into too much detail, but that prevented people from being laid off, but that kind of didn't give compensation increases. The last contract loosened the layoff clause, gave us more flexibility to lay people off that were hired after a certain date, after the date of the last contract, but included some more compensation increases. What the union, you know, they asked for an increase in compensation in this year's contract. We came back with them with a 1% increase in compensation for the following year, which last year I think we had, what do we have, a 2% last year? 2.75.
Right. And if we didn't come to an agreement, it would go back to that number, right, Tom?
No, actually, Kendra, when the contract formally ended at June 2020, there was no increase for this year, and there would not be until the board and the union reached an agreement.
So it would just keep on going, nothing. Okay.
So the personnel committee, after talking with Gene and Tom and looking at the budget that we've already put in place for the coming year, came to the conclusion that we could fund this 1% increase without having a material effect on our services. So we, you know, again, this board has to ratify this contract, so it's not been agreed yet, and we haven't yet furnished the union with, you know, a written document outlining these items. But in principle, we, the personnel committee, are proposing a 1% increase in compensation for this one-year contract, and then we'll go back to the bargaining table, you know, in the spring for, you know, the future years. And you know, I can't predict the future, so I'm not going to speculate on what that will look like. But it's certainly not probably going to be a more favorable environment than we've had historically. So tonight we're putting forth to the board for a vote. And Tom, correct me if I'm going you know, awry at any point here. A vote on a proposed one-year extension of the existing contract, and the changes to that contract, just to rehash quickly, are as follows: changing the custodial work week hours to be in line with all other employees, but with the caveat that we have the flexibility to hire part-time custodian labor if we need to, so we don't incur additional overtime costs. So that's number one. Number two is granting the Friday, I don't know, I have Thursday in my head, the Friday after Thanksgiving as a paid holiday. And the last item is a 1% increase in salaries to the you know, to the employees. And so this would run through June 2021, and then we would go back to the bargaining table, obviously in advance of that.
So just to add one thing, for the union, a one-year contract is we haven't done that. I don't know, Tom, have you done that in your time here? We've never done that. So
3 to 4.
Yeah, they're always 3 to 4 years. So that's I think that was our way of trying to kind of bring some containment to whatever were changes we needed to make. But to bring some containment reflective of this COVID world. So,
And the
Yeah.
and the other thing that I would just add is that we do, so based on the last contract, and which we'll be continuing with this, we do have flexibility if we have to, and I don't want to do this, and I don't think any of us want to do this, to let people go. Anybody that was hired after the date of the last contract, which I think was 2014, Tom, is that right? June 2014?
Yep.
There's a no layoff clause in the contract that protects everybody hired prior to that time, but everybody hired post that time, you know, if we need to, again, I don't want to, I don't think any of us want to, but we do have flexibility if we come to a dire situation to reduce force for folks that were hired after that date. And, you know, I think it's our, you know, intention to continue to maintain that flexibility, you know, going forward. So, because that was an important thing that we also discussed, which, you know, does give the union discomfort, and we held the line on sort of keeping that intact.
Daniel, you want to add anything?
So with that, yeah.
I just want to see if Daniel wants to add it.
I think Chuck summed it up beautifully.
Despite the error on the Friday, sorry. But with that, open it up to questions, concerns, thoughts.
I have a question. So the custodians are just changing their hours. Are they shortening them, or they're just becoming more regular hours?
So
they're becoming more. Go ahead.
Their work week was a little bit longer than everybody else's before. I mean, Tom can give the specifics, and so we're bringing them in line to everybody else. And our initial concern was like, well, if we do that, then they're going to have more overtime and we're going to have more cost. And so that's why we needed flexibility to bring in part-time labor. But I don't know if, Tom, if you want to just give the specifics on the hours.
Sure. Yes. Sarah and everyone else on the board, for some reason, the workforce in our library for full-time staff were divided into two categories: custodial staff and essentially everybody else. And the custodians were obligated to work 3 additional hours per week. And, you know, they were not being compensated, you know, in relation to those extra hours. And there was some concerns on the part of the custodian that this was unfair. There was not equity between the staff and their group. And we understood their point of view. And we agreed that we thought it was a reasonable idea if we could hire a part-time staff member who could pick up the overtime hours. And currently, at least up until the pandemic began, overtime for the custodians was not an insignificant number. And so our thought was we could probably make up for, you know, for the reduced custodial schedule by using this part-time person who would be paid, you know, less in terms of fringe benefits, et cetera, than our full-time staff, and actually maybe break even or maybe even save a little bit. And the other bonus is that we have 3 hardworking custodians who put in, you know, can sometimes put in long days, but like every other employee, they're entitled to time away, whether it be vacation, personal, or if, unfortunately, if they're sick, and that's happened. When a custodian is ill and out for a day, it's not so problematic. When they're out for a week or 2 weeks or longer, and that's happened, it really puts a great stress on the remaining 2 custodians. And we think having that 3rd part-time custodian as a swing person can, you know, make us a more efficient operation.
Okay, great. That makes sense. I didn't realize that they worked extra hours than everyone else. So it's nice to hear that it brings them in line with everyone else. And then my other question is just about, I don't know this, is the library typically open on the Friday after Thanksgiving?
It had been, yes.
It has been.
Okay, so now it will be closed going forward.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
but Saturday it will open.
Yeah.
Right. We'll open on Saturday.
I actually thought it was closed because I always assumed, like everything else, Friday shuts down. So,
well, you know, the irony is that in yesteryear, years and years ago, the Friday after Thanksgiving would typically be a very popular day in public
a busy
libraries.
day. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's changed. That
Yeah.
the online technology has really changed how students, particularly college students who are home, use the library. And it's now, quite frankly, everybody's dealing with all the crazy Friday sales, and so there are far fewer people in the library than previously on previous Friday after Thanksgivings, and even compared to other days, it's not well used.
Any
Any
other
other
questions?
I have just a really basic question. I'm interested and happy to hear that if we provide a 1% raise to the union members, that it doesn't impact our services, even though we had a 0 increase budget this year.
Yep. That's just, it's interesting because when we were going back and forth, we actually had our executive director and Jean. What is Jean's proper title?
Administrative assistant.
Yeah. Administrative assistant extraordinaire were part of the discussion because we wanted to make sure, what does this mean in terms of our services and what can we afford and what can we not afford? And so they both pretty much guaranteed us that percent was okay. Beyond that was not okay.
There are oftentimes savings, unintentional, otherwise. And Jean looked at the books, we talked about it, and we thought that that we could obtain that 1% for the staff. We could.
That's great. Thank you.
For a year. This is not, we still have.
Yeah, we're gonna have another conversation in a matter of months, and unfortunately, I doubt it's going to be a more favorable situation.
Fortunately.
What's the pro or the con if we didn't vote for the 1%? Can you not vote? Like, what would happen if it was a no vote?
We have to go back to the bargaining table.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're really looking for more than 1%.
Oh, yes.
Well,
Yeah.
But
Yes.
For sure.
They very legitimately and easily accepted the 1%, understanding, the kind of economic climate that we're in, and that our budget was a 0% increase. As I said, you can tell what the future will hold. It looks rather grim now, but one never knows.
And just refresh my memory, did we try 0? Just out of curiosity, I don't remember.
So we're coming to you with our kind of proposal. This is what we're proposing. We haven't, this is what we're proposing.
Well,
Okay.
this is what we proposed to them as well and agreed upon on both parties, right? Peter?
Yes.
So we've agreed in principle, subject to this board approving
conversation.
it. Because as part of the way we function, the negotiation was delegated to the personnel committee, and so this is where we are. So if we were to have a majority vote against this in today's meeting, then we would go back to the table and say we don't have support of our board.
So the subcommittee pre-negotiated, and now they're presenting to the board what they've negotiated and sometimes approved.
Yep.
Finalize,
Correct.
if anything, the negotiation
Right.
on our end.
Yep.
If I could say just one thing, after we came to our agreement, our tentative agreement, there was an email sort of conversation amongst WLS directors about actually this very topic, what were libraries giving their staff as increases. And I have to be honest with you, we were on the lower end of the scale. There were some libraries that, despite everything that was going on, were providing higher percentage increases. I think, very honestly, we compare very favorably. with what many libraries in the county have agreed to.
I'm surprised by that. I agree with everything else, the Friday holiday, shortening the custodial hours, adding the part-timer, but given that we had a 0 increase for our budget and just what's going on with the world, and a lot of people are out of work right now, and I just don't agree with the 1% increase. Even though it's minimal.
Shall we put it to a vote?
Sure. Does anybody else have anything else they'd like to add? Does someone want to make a motion?
Chuck?
Sure. I mean, I'll make a motion that we ratify an extension of the existing union contract for 1 year with a 1% increase in salaries, granting the Friday after Thanksgiving as a paid holiday, and bringing the custodial work week in line with the work week in terms of number of hours week required to be worked with the rest of this library, union library staff. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, Jean, did you get that?
Or maybe we just should call for opposed.
All opposed?
Vote.
All right. Any abstention? Okay. That passes. Thank you to our trustees. And thank you for the honest conversation about it, Sarah. So I think there's one more report. The personnel committee has to approve, or you have to approve changes to the structure of the library. With Barbara Davis leaving, there's a change to how the community relations team will be staffed. And so Tom, if you could tell us how, and then if there's any questions, and then I will ask to see if we can get that passed. Okay?
Thank you, Deirdre.
Yep.
And I should say that this scenario was approved by the Personnel Committee at a previous meeting. And basically, we all know that Barbara Davis has announced her resignation, her retirement, I should say, her retirement after many years of meritorious service. And she will be gone formally by January, but she has quite a bit of time to take. And so she will be leaving sometime in November. And as we looked at the situation, Barbara's position, the community relations coordinator position, has grown considerably since its original inception in the 70s. And it's really become a position that was really too much for one person to handle. The original intent was some communications and some programming, and it's become, in addition to that, which has expanded, marketing and social media, and a whole nother feature that really relates to community outreach. And Barbara has worked tirelessly, many hours, overtime, and a lot of weekends, virtually no weekends off. And we just thought that it was just impossible to maintain this approach. So what we decided to do was to essentially carve up the position and create areas of responsibility that relate to particular topics and duties. And so we are proposing to create a community and marketing coordinator, a programming coordinator, and we are proposing to upgrade our community outreach assistant to community outreach coordinator. And the communications and marketing coordinator will be, of course, in charge of the community contact and connections in terms of press releases and social media, and you know, working with our staff to highlight areas that we're working on, be involved in some website information too as well. And we'll be charged with finding new ways to market our library to our community, our very diverse community. While we're popular, we're well aware, despite all of our efforts, that we're not getting into the community the way that we would like. And we think one person with that sole responsibility will have more time to do it. The programming coordinator is another position that we'd like to create, and that would relate to all the many programming efforts that go on in the library, both for children, for teens, and for adults, working with the staff and doing programs separately. Also being in charge of the Lumen Winter Gallery and curating the art shows there, and also essentially becoming the theater manager, which we think we desperately need. We feel that someday when the pandemic disappears, we would love to be able to use our theater more proactively, particularly on weekends, on a Friday night, Saturday night, maybe Sunday night. And we're hoping to come up with plans that this person can work on to find ways to involve the community and use the theater that's sitting fallow. And the third element is the community outreach, which goes on both in the building and outside. In the building, that person will continue to do in-house social service sort of assistance and triage and point people who have issues in the right direction, whether it be the Senior Information Benefit Clinic or ESL or Pace Women's Justice Center or Health Navigator or many of our other partnerships. And also work with our partners in the community, maintain relationships and services, bring our partners in to provide services once we fully reopen, and find new connections in the community for partnerships that will benefit our residents. And we have someone in that position now as a coordinator, who as a sort of an assistant, who's been working for upwards of 3 years, who's well prepared, longtime New Rochelle resident, to take on this responsibility. And the financials will work because the community relations coordinator justifiably earned a good salary and made overtime because of the many. So these positions will have a lower salary, which will ultimately essentially bring us to a break-even point. So that's it, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Does anybody have any questions?
Clarify, so that's breaking the position into 3 positions, is that right?
Yeah.
Into 3, okay.
With one position, Sarah, already existing. The second one position will be Barbara's position that will be renamed and given a lower salary. And the second position, we unfortunately are not only losing Barbara Davis, but we're losing Roxanne Mapp, who has for many, many years functioned as our graphic designer and done a great job, but she's also went back, got her library degree, has been a great librarian, has been very actively involved in collection development. And she also, like Barbara, is retiring. And so we're taking that position and we're using that for the programming coordinator. Now, the jobs that relate to graphic design, we have staff that we can use to work in that area. We may look to upgrade a salary as well at a later point in time. But basically, I think it makes sense to make the positions more manageable and allow people to work a more manageable schedule, less burnout, et cetera. And financially, it works in our favor. We've figured that out, which is an important element to all of this.
Okay, great, thank you.
But Tom, what's the net? You said financially works out. What's the net? Are we up or down based on all these changes?
We're actually down a little bit, Corey. by probably about $10,000 to $12,000.
Okay, so over, slightly over, I guess. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying
Down.
we're good.
Under.
Down.
Okay.
Under.
Under.
All right, good. Okay, that's great.
I just want to say that I appreciate, Tom, the very clearly a ton of thought has gone into, what the right approach is here. Barbara obviously is a very special and unique person who has played a tremendously important role at the library and the city more broadly. But I think, look, time when things like this changes happen, it's an opportunity to step back and think about what's the right approach going forward. And organizational design is always complicated. And so it's clear that you guys have, you and others have put a lot of thought into this. So thank you. And I think it sounds like, a positive evolution of our, of our organization to help continue to, meet the needs of the community.
I think so. And there are opportunities possibly for interior, promotions, internal promotions, and maybe outside too as well. And I think one thing that's great to see that we've been able to accomplish over the previous years is to create new opportunities for deserving staff members to rise to upgraded or new positions, and just make the workforce a more sort of healthy and vital kind of organization, that it's not static, that it's being given the opportunity to grow and recognized for their achievements, and when an internal promotion is appropriate, it's a great feeling.
Agreed. It's good stuff. Thank you.
Welcome. So I guess we'd need a resolution to approve those positions, and they all will be placed at the salary grade that is currently held by a librarian 2, but it doesn't mean there are a librarian 2. It's just that salary grade, which I don't have an exact number because our contract, of course, is still in flux, but it's in the $61,000 to $62,000 start area.
Does anybody have any questions before I make the motion? Any more questions? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the positions, the 3 positions that will make up the new community relations team, one of which is already there. So I'm making that motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Did you get that, Jean? It was
Daniel, fine.
Daniel. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Is everybody in favor? Corey, were you opposing? Is Corey opposing?
I said aye.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I just saw your, okay. All in favor. Okay, so congratulations, Tom, on a job well done. Go forth and conquer. I look forward to what the new team is going to look like and all that they're going to do. Thanks so much. So now we are going to go to public discussion.
Sorry, we have we didn't do any policy.
Corey, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm very sorry. There's 2 more, and I got Corey. Please forgive me. Okay, first it's Corey because he actually wrote a note, I think to everybody or maybe just to me, that we have a report from Special Projects.
Special Projects. Just really quickly, and Tom shared the news that he had a conversation with Steve Sinnett, and we did come to an agreement to do something to honor Alicia Keston, but I don't think we want to disclose what the decisions, but we did come to an agreement to honor her, and it's in conjunction with Volunteer New York and the Rochelle Public Library, and obviously the community. And so wanted to share that, and also wanted to just discuss the lawn and how we are going about finding the finances or financing the second phase of removal of the artwork. And This is more of an open dialogue that we're having. It's more of an update. I believe the foundation was looking for us to come in, so I think we just need to have an overall conversation, and already shared this with the subcommittee on special projects, and Tom and I talked about this as well, on to come up with some type of a policy on how we deal with grants and different things that the foundation may provide for us, because we're very thankful for all the financial aid they provide to the library, but we do have to coordinate on when we go out for grants and things like that. So what we're looking at, and Whitney, you could take it over from here as the chair of the policy subcommittee, and what we're thinking on that.
Sure. Yeah, I actually don't feel quite prepared to talk about it because I think it's work that we need to do.
This is work to be done.
Yes, it's work to be done. But it's really the board's responsibility to create policies around funding and what we do with the money and what are our priorities. So that's kind of in the works. And then I have another policy update if Corey, you're finished.
I'm done. That's why I passed it to you.
Got it. Okay. Took it. I took it and now I will run with it. I have, the policy committee met and we discussed a couple of policies, and I think we're really only ready to share one, and that's related to the vacancy. If my two colleagues, Sarah and Corey, agree that it looked okay to you, that we could put it, share it with this group and see if we're ready for a vote. Does that sound okay to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna. Is it okay if I share the screen? Is it okay if I put it up? I can read it too, if that's better. What do you prefer?
Are you asking us, or are you asking your?
Well, I don't know I'll just read it to you. So we made, we had a vacancy policy previously. It was very, very vague and did not match at all with. It was vague, and we followed the procedure, but the procedure didn't really outline steps to be taken when it comes to filling a vacancy with a trustee appointment in the interim period between when the vacancy takes effect and when the election would provide the new elected appointee. So we just basically made a kind of an outline following what we usually do. And I'm going to read it to everybody, so just bear with me here. We propose that the board vote to approve the following modified vacancy policy. Whenever a vacancy on the Board of Trustees shall occur for any reason, the vacancy shall be filled at the next duly scheduled election. The Board of Trustees may appoint an interim trustee to serve until the next annual election, at which time the remainder of the term shall be filled by a candidate duly elected at such election. Approval of an interim trustee shall be made according to the following procedure, and here's where we get a little bit granular, so again, bear with me. The members of the Board of Trustees must first approve by a vote of 2/3 of the members in favor of proceeding with the appointment of an interim trustee. In other words, we all have to agree that we want to appoint somebody. Say someone, steps down in May or April, and we all decide we don't really want to appoint somebody because we only have a month or two. Does that make sense? We don't have.
We all have to. Will we vote on that?
Yes. So that's step one. Is the members have to vote to approve that we want to appoint somebody.
Oh, okay. So that's the first step.
That's the first step. Second step is that notice of the open trustee position, this is all very familiar to everybody, must then be posted on the library website and through its social media outlets, just as we've done, within 10 days of the vote to proceed with the appointment of the interim trustee. The post must include instructions describing the application and appointment processes. Clear so far?
Yeah.
So what we've already been doing. Number C, letter C, applicants must be allowed no less than 2 weeks and no more than 4 weeks to submit an application. Tom, is that generally accurate so far? Is that our rough time frame?
Yes, typically that's what we've done in the past, Whitney.
That's what I thought. Okay, good. The next one is all current trustees must be given the opportunity to interview all candidates, though it is not mandatory that all current trustees interview all candidates. In other words, if anybody who wants to interview should be, accommodations should be made so that all trustees can meet all candidates if they so choose. We may want to have a minimum. How has it been done in the past? Is it that we've always met each prospective candidate? You're muted, Deirdre. I see you.
No. Well, I think there was an attempt to.
I apologize.
There was an attempt to, but I remember in past years, and Chuck's been on the board the longest, he can tell you, but I remember in past years, I didn't meet with everybody. I would just meet with people after an executive session and we would talk about it. So I didn't, I didn't have to meet everybody.
Okay, so
I apologize. I froze up after the applicant timeline, so I didn't get what was said after the timeline.
It's a question, Chuck, for you though, because you've been here the longest and I think you probably could answer.
What was the last thing that you heard me say?
I just heard the applicant timeline when you were asking Tom to confirm the 2 to 4 week thing.
Yes, okay, that's kind of as far the next thing. Can you see this? I'm just going to share the screen.
Yep, I see
because
it.
I think it's easier than me because I'm stopping a bunch. So yeah, so I asked Tom to confirm letter C, applicants must be allowed no less than 2 weeks and no more than 4 weeks to submit an application. Then the next one, this is where we were kind of stopped, that I was saying all current trustees must be given the opportunity to interview all candidates, so it's not mandatory that everybody interviews. Does that make sense?
The only thing that I would say on that is I don't think we can expect to schedule around everybody's schedule on the board. So I don't know if we want to put something about I don't know the right language offhand, but if we schedule, 2 sessions and everybody has an opportunity to go, we can't I don't think we should be obligating ourselves to work around everybody's schedule
I agree with that. I mean,
in a ridiculous way to accommodate every trustee.
Right. So trustees should make every effort to actually accommodate
or trustees
this.
will be given a reasonable opportunity to,
Yeah.
I don't, maybe we want a lawyer to look at the language, but reasonable opportunity to interview all candidates, because I think we have to be, pragmatic about it.
And I think the second part covers that too, so that it's not mandatory. So if someone misses it because of schedule conflicts, we can still proceed.
Yeah.
Right, so
I have a question.
Yeah.
In regards to that. Isn't there a thing where we can't be more than 3 trustees in one room if it's not?
Yeah, but we accounted for that in this last round. Remember, we met in different rooms. We weren't all together.
Right.
We've done that in prior.
Yeah,
we've kind of done
that's fine. What were you going to say, Deirdre?
So, nothing.
Okay.
You guys have covered it.
Okay, and then this is basically following what we did, what we have done in the past, what we just did for when we appointed Corey. So this is kind of following that procedure. I'm just spelling it out so that we can be sure that we are following, that there can be no dispute that this is the way that we're going to do it, with any edits. And I want to get the timing right too. So I'm saying here, E, following the last interview, discussion of candidates will be held at the next board meeting in executive session, at which time an agreement must be reached in executive session regarding the candidate to be recommended for approval via vote during the public portion of the same meeting. That's what we did, right? So we met in executive session. Go ahead.
I agree. The only word that gives me pause is must.
Okay, so. Okay.
It is expected an agreement will be reached.
Yeah. Okay.
The word must makes, because what if you had an executive session and people were all over the map?
Yeah.
And there was no consensus and we decided we need to table the discussion.
Yep. Okay.
Actually, I don't think that's right at all, because I don't think we have to come to an agreement. I think we have to discuss it. But we certainly don't have to come to an agreement.
Well, if we don't come to an agreement, then we have to put forth every candidate and vote for every candidate one at a time. Is that how you want to do it?
I think we should say which time an attempt will be made to come to an agreement, so that we can vote on a
Okay.
candidate. But there might be a candidate there might be people we might not ever,
Right.
I don't think you can force an agreement.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, people don't agree, you don't
Yeah,
fill the position, right?
we
I
don't
mean,
fill the
that's-
position. Yeah.
Right. So if we can't agree, then we just, do we need to codify that? What happens if we don't agree? Or if we can't?
I mean, and I think the goal is an executive session. We're attempting to come to some agreement.
Right.
But it's not that an executive, we must come to an agreement. We're attempting to come to an agreement.
Yeah.
If we don't, then we would go back out and interview more candidates, and we'd continue working the process until we came to an agreement.
Okay.
It's like hiring
Or we
somebody.
would decide, or we would decide that we weren't gonna not,
Yeah, we ain't gonna fill it.
Okay, so this
Not
this
fair.
only accounts for the one scenario in which we do come to an agreement. So this doesn't account for what happens if we don't come to an agreement. In that, if we don't come to an agreement and we keep looking.
Which I think is okay, because we're not required to fill the position, I don't think, under like.
Right,
New York
we're-
state
yeah.
law,
No,
we have to-
but if we have voted to fill it and we don't agree on who to fill it with, then what do? Do we vote to say we can change our mind and we don't want to fill it?
Yes.
Right?
We
So-
say we haven't found somebody that we want in the position. Just because people apply doesn't mean we'll want them.
Yeah, if an agreement
It's
is
the
not
truth.
made, if we don't make an agreement, the trustees can decide to continue the search, I mean, maybe what I should do is, maybe we're not ready.
I think
to vote.
ultimately we'll want our attorney for the library to look at this to make sure we're not like contravening something that's already in the New York state law, just a suggestion.
Okay, I think that's totally valid. And I also, we're trying to make it very clear that a process is being followed, that it's kind of.
No, I think it's good.
This is, but I also, this is where it was so vague last time, is because we didn't want to, get so bogged down in obligating ourselves to a specific procedure. But because there was a dispute about whether or not we followed, the protocol, which we did, we thought it would be helpful to make it as clear as possible. But I don't think, I don't want to sacrifice flexibility in some cases for like being really rigid, So anyway, this is just one way to go forward. We could modify this further, but if everyone agrees, or specifically our policy committee, this may not be ready for a vote tonight. I can continue kind of fleshing this part out, and then our committee can agree that it's time for maybe our attorney to look at it, and then we can bring it to vote next time. Does that sound fine? Or would you like to just proceed?
I think we should proceed. That's my opinion.
What does everyone think?
I would suggest that we have, just because we're getting pretty specific, that we have the library's attorney take a look at it, just because I would just want to make sure we're not like, you don't need to engineer something that's already covered under the law.
But I don't think that this is I don't think that we're obligated to do it. So I don't know that we would have a law about it. That's why we're making policy.
Yeah, no, I don't necessarily disagree. I just don't know. So
Right.
I think this is great, and I think it is generally reflective of what we've done. And I think having a level of specificity around the process is appropriate and good. But I would just suggest that we have the attorney review it, but others may have different views.
I don't want it to become legalese and all this. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
I think it's going to extend the process. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a
But
vacancy.
it
We don't,
here
we don't have-
in January. We'll vote. I would assume, if we went through the legal process. 'Cause then we have to have turns and notes. So you meet with the attorney say, all right, what do you guys think? We have to come back here, say, hey, here's what the attorney said. We think this. What do you guys think? Then you guys gotta go back. We all gotta go back to the attorney. Here's what our group says. Can you make the adjustments? So that's October, November, you'll probably be December, January.
Well, I mean, personally,
I don't think it'll be that long.
No,
Corey.
and I
don't
also
think
don't,
It's only one, we meet once a month. That's
I
all.
know, but I also don't think that I think that it's
We could probably
worthwhile.
do it next month, but
Okay.
Yeah, and I also think it's worthwhile to get it right if it's something that we're going to try and follow. And if suddenly a vacancy happened in, say, November and we hadn't agreed on this new one, we would just revert back to the old one anyway, the one that's currently in play. So it's not like we are operating without a policy.
That's a good point.
Um,
Can I ask one other question?
yeah.
Why the 2/3 on the vote to appoint a trustee versus just like a simple majority?
Just because, well, first of all, if there's someone if there's a vacancy, just assuming there's one vacancy, yeah, I mean, I guess we could do a simple majority. It's just there would be 6 people. Yeah, so it would have to be a minimum of 2/3. It would have to be 4 people, which is 2/3 of 6. So that's where I was saying it's the same thing. In the case of 6 people, in this case of 6 people, it is 2/3 is a simple majority. But if there's 5 people because there's 2 vacancies at once, then there's no such thing as 2/3. So yeah, the math. Okay, so we can fix this. Let's see. Where does it say 2/3 by a majority vote?
I mean, I would just, for me, I would just keep it simple with that. But
Good, that's fine. We had 2/3 in the previous one, so.
got it.
There's another one. Portion, where was it? Did you see another one? There was another, oh, here it is, to a majority vote. Okay, so what do you want to run this by our attorney, and then I can. So the last one is so here we are in this E, which is the big kind of moment of truth. We either come to an agreement, vote on somebody, and appoint them. We would appoint them via vote of a majority at that. So I guess my question is, if we meet an executive session and we agree on a candidate, in that public portion, we could vote on that appointee, correct? That's what we've done in the past.
I think it's mandated by law that if the board agrees upon something like choosing a replacement trustee, it has to be voted in public meeting.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's fine. That's what I have here. So my question was, does it have to be at that same meeting that we're going into executive session? We wouldn't put it off, right?
No, I think you could decide whenever you want, but the trustee couldn't take office until the public vote was.
And so then that new trustee would come the following month to be sworn in?
No, you could, the board could convene as an early matter of business. It could take a vote on, bringing a new trustee on board. That person then could be sworn in and then could take office that evening.
Okay.
And that's been done before.
Okay, during the public. Okay. All right, so I'll take another look at this, and if there's not opposition, I will, major opposition to this, I will run it by our, I'll share it with Tom, and Tom can share it with our council. Is that how it works?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll reach out to David Shaw, who's our attorney, and I'll carbon you, Whitney. So you would be involved in the response.
Great.
If that's okay.
That's great. Okay, so we'll have this ready to go hopefully by our next board meeting. And that's all I have.
Got it.
Thank you.
all right. So that I do not, are there any more committee reports? No? Okay, I have one question for Sarah. At one point we were doing the children's coloring books. Are we still?
I mean, it's ready, but the idea was to like sell it at the children's library.
Oh.
I don't know if we can do that, or do we want to
Okay.
offer digitally? I just,
To be honest, Sarah, at this point, we are functioning in a cash-free environment. So I would suggest if we were to, the library was to sell it, it would be at some point once the pandemic is, past its dangerous phase. Because we, at this point, like most libraries, are not accepting cash.
right.
Okay. Okay. I just thought about them the other day. I was like, where are they? Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I could,
But we could sell it if somebody reached out to us and
link it on
maybe
our site. I mean,
we could manage it in a different way, and mail it to somebody or leave it for somebody for a pickup. There could be different, we could talk about ways to handle it.
Okay. All right. I actually thought this was going to be a shorter meeting, but it's 9:37 and we are now ready to do public. Sarah, are you with us? I think she froze.
I think she froze.
She looks frozen.
She's Sarah. Okay.
I bet.
Well, she'll come back to us if she has anything else to say about that. So we are now to public discussion. And I know Marjorie put in the chat box that she wanted to say something. So I don't have anybody else, I think, who wants to talk. If so, please put it in the chat box. But I am going to now allow Marjorie to talk.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I've had a really long day, so I'm not particularly coherent. Please forgive me. And I actually, on that note, if I have other thoughts and ideas, what's the best way between this meeting and the next to convey those ideas? Do I email all of you, or?
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's hard to hear you, but we'll do our best.
Okay, is that any better?
Yeah, there's like a buzz.
Oh, let me take out my head. No?
Oh, way better.
Oh,
That's much better.
Okay, so in terms of the development, Deirdre, I really appreciate you, bringing this up to the board. It's something that I think, many of us who've come to the meetings when they were in person have expressed our concern about all the development that's going on and potentially future development. I don't know if you're aware that probably pretty soon it's going to come before the city council to do additional rezoning above and beyond the overlay zoning for the downtown, and which would allow more small buildings to, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
It would, allow more development to go down on in the downtown. So as much as I appreciate the idea of partnering with the commissioner development, I really think I don't know that it's useful use of your time. I think it's worth it, but I don't think partnering with him is going to be possible. I think it's really more about advocacy with everybody. In terms of this, the new development, the new zoning that might come before us, it's really the city council that votes on that. So I would strongly suggest that you all, individually get in touch with the individual city council members to let them know that you do not want more if it's the case that you do not want more development near the library. You don't want anything like that approved, because they have the power, and their 3 new city council members, they have the power to vote it down. I think that's really important, kind of looking forward to, to be advocates for that. The city council people often think that they don't have a lot of power, but they actually do have a lot of power. The other part is that I would suggest meeting with the director of or the chairperson of the planning department to really find out what is this process? How does development get approved? Where in the process can you have access? Again, you may not have legal power, but you have a lot of political power. You know, there was recently an article, I think in the New York Times, that said that libraries are the most trusted institutions in any town or city. And that's a lot of power that you have there because there's not a lot of trust in many of the other institutions in our city. I also think probably even most important is the 2 parking lots across the street and adjacent to the library. Those are public properties. A lot of these other developments are on private land, but this is public. And this is also where you have power to try to influence city council people and the mayor and the planning people that you don't want development on that. Because if you think that these buildings that are now going up are going to impact the library, anything on those parking lots is going to be awful. In the master development agreement, I believe it's only RXR that would have the right to develop on those parking lots, but I don't even know that it's a definitive right. I think it's possible that that could be voted down. And if you're gonna, I would actually strongly suggest that your library attorney look at the certain, and I can get to you, I don't have it in front of me, but there are certain parts of the master development agreement that your attorney could look at to let you know whether or not they do have to sell it to RXR or whether they don't. And it's only to RXR is what I have come to be told, not any other developers. But we have a commissioner of development who, as somebody said, is going around the country trying to bring everybody into New Rochelle and has really no interest in the sacredness of the library. So I just, again, would keep that in mind and see yourselves as advocates and not so much as partners. And if I have other thoughts, I will email them to you. And if you want, I can find the parts of the master development agreement and let you know what those are.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, she muted. Okay, I think she's muted. Okay. I don't think is there anybody else? It's just Jean, no, the only people left are staff. So I think if there's nothing else, does anybody have anything else?
No.
Can I ask one question? Are we thinking about meeting
Oh yes, in person.
in person?
What do you guys, so
appropriate
we were supposed to talk about
protocols?
that. Are you guys ready to meet in person? I mean, the school board's not doing it yet. And the governor just did an extension so that we don't have to do it. We could do it. So
I would personally, if the situation does not go in a bad direction, you know, before the next meeting in terms of the statistics, et cetera, I would be in favor of, I'd be comfortable meeting in person, I guess I would say.
Okay.
I think I would like to stay kind of in line with the schools. So if the schools are not in person, I would like to not be in person.
Okay.
Could I ask, if we happen to choose to meet in person, how would we handle the issue of the public? Would we allow them in? We could have a cap and socially distance people. I'm just wondering.
Like, will we be socially distanced also because we sit kind of close together?
Yes,
and okay.
yes.
Absolutely.
I would only be in favor if we had social distancing of everybody, and you know, that seems accommodatable based on our last couple of years of meetings.
Tom, are we able, I mean, I know Hannah tried to do this in the weirdest like Facebook Live way, but are we allowed to do meetings are we allowed to have people on Zoom if some of us are physically there and others are on, do we know? Is it
We don't know. That's a great question. And it's one that I could pose to
Yep.
David,
Yep.
in addition to the policy question. What you're asking, Deirdre, just so that I understand, is if we happen to, at a future meeting, could we do a hybrid where
Yep.
some people were in person and some people were remote? And my
Yep.
only would be, beyond whether or not it's legal, is could we manage it in terms of technology?
Yeah, it's fair. I think it'd be
Yeah.
ideal to have that kind of a setup.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think we could, because I mean, we can't all be on Zoom in the same room because there's all this feedback. So I'm not sure, but I'm very, yes, Dan, do you have an answer?
I'm thinking of a hybrid model in where we as trustees can meet together and we can put up a simple webcam and screen where the public can log in and they view the meeting, and then we are able to if we do have public comment, we're able to, similar to what we did here, but we're all in a room zooming in and able to, that's a hybrid model where it's less risk, where it's just us as trustees, but it's still open to the public in regards to being able to stream the meeting live at your home rather than having to come out to the library.
So you're saying a webcam would be where?
Would be in the center of, towards the stage area, if you will, towards the where Nicolette sets up.
Yeah.
That webcam will capture all of us, and the audio will be played on Zoom and the video.
So what Zoom would it be played on?
Our trustee Zoom.
So there would be a
we're using
computer
now.
set up. There would be a computer set up, is what you're
Meeting
saying?
from the theater with Nicolette sort of running it.
Correct. So she has the devices she can do it from an iPad. She can, she records everything there, so she can stream Zoom, and we can HDMI the video feed front to another screen or even to the projector, to be quite honest with you, where we can see the public on the screen.
All right, well, I will leave that to Nicolette and to you. I don't know how to do
Sounds
that.
like Daniel might moonlight as like a TV producer.
Yeah. So I'll leave that to you guys, but I will say this, if people, because we are in this pandemic, I would prefer to do a hybrid model.
I agree.
I do not want to, if people are not comfortable coming in, I don't want them to come in.
I agree.
Particularly
Tom,
when it comes to some
I'm
folks.
happy to assist and connect with Daniel and Nicolette and kind of, facilitate on the tech side.
All right.
Yeah.
Daniel, thank you. Yeah, if we could come up with that hybrid best of all worlds model, that'd be great. And I can reach out to Nicolette and Daniel OG, and also keep you in the loop too, Daniel, as part of the conversation.
Yeah, it sounds hard, me saying it, but it's not. It's fairly simple. It's
Right.
not, but we'll talk behind the scenes.
Right.
Thank you.
We'll get on that, this week, and we'll it sounds like it's something that's been done elsewhere. So we seem to have all the tools. Why can't we as well?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions before we adjourn?
Wrap it up.
Wrap it up. Okay, I make a motion for us to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you so much.
You
The
too.
meeting's adjourned.
Enjoy your evening.
Bye-bye.